I'm making another album. And just before I went for a drive and had a listen to said album, which is nearly there. Of course, there's an infinite amount I could do, because, you know, the more that you do, the more you notice that, oh, I could do this and I could do that. But this is one of the wonderful things about a deadline, is that it's a forcing function that that means that you say, okay, this is the end point. So now I need to figure out what I can do in the time I have available. And, you know, that's one of the things that I think delineates a professional approach to this as opposed to an amateur one. At the end of the day, professionals have to hit deadlines. Okay, and I'm not very keen on the word professional in general, but a lot of other people are, so I'm going to speak their language. And really, if you want to take a pro approach to it, hit a deadline. It's as simple as that. But in listening to this album, one of the reasons I took a drive and listened is that it's just something about that. I've always done this. I always listen to the results in a car, and you get a very different kind of, I mean, it's not just the speakers, you just get a different perspective on it. And the reason I needed to listen to it from beginning to end was that I thought I needed to make an order change, a track order change, but I wasn't sure. And making that track order change would mean I'd have to change the key of one of the tracks on the album. Anyway, the long and short of it is that I listened to the new order, and I think it's much better. So that's good. But aside from that, in listening back to the album, I realized that there's an enormous amount that you are missing out on. I've been missing out on in terms of developing my style, my kind of authentic sound, in attempting to do it outside of the context of a specific project, like a specific definable project. I mean, I don't think there's any. I mean, if you think of it, look into music history, and you look at the great artists, their sound at any given time is defined by what exactly? An album, right? It's like that's what defined their sound at the time. Now, I think we often think that it's almost like, well, there's an album, so that's what people remember. But that's only half of the formula. The other half of the formula is that there's just something about our minds, something about our brains that mean that completing a specific project on a specific deadline, or completing it at a certain point and then putting it out into the world, forces this, okay, so what am I trying to say and how am I trying to say it? And even if you weren't going to release that music that you made in one chunk as an album, it would still have those benefits. It would still mean you'd be like, okay, you know, if you took that approach, what am I trying to say and how am I trying to say it right now? Where am I at? What is the particular constellation of skills that I have and don't have? What's the particular setup that I have and what don't I have? So, and therefore, what can I do with what I have? And how can I express what I want to express with that? It's doable. It's much more doable. In fact, I think it's almost not possible. I mean, I guess it is possible, but it's much, much more hard outside of the context of a specific project. And this was something that I realized in listening back to the album, because at the start of this whole project, back in December, if you listen to some of the first episodes of the album, one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because I wanted to define my style. I mean, even over singing, starting to sing and all that kind of stuff. The main reason was wanting to finally get this bugbear off my back where I'd never managed to define a style. And it's funny, while I think I'm much closer than I've ever got before, listening back, it's still quite diverse. Quite diverse. I don't think it's as diverse as it has been before. I mean, if you listen to my other 4 albums are absolutely all over the place. I, manifestly failed to find a style with those. But I mean, I guess there is sort of, it was funny, in me finishing this album, my children and Sally have been listening to some of my old music in the kitchen. So I've been going in, I've been leaving the studio and going back to cook dinner. I've been like, oh God, what's this crap? What's this crap on the speaker? And it's some of my old stuff. And actually, I think I've maybe been a little too hard on myself, kind of listening to it back after all this time, sort of with a different kind of pair of ears on. There's definitely a vibe with my old stuff, but I'm really looking for more than that. I'm looking for a distinctive and unique, that is Mike Monday sound. And I think I've probably got, well, I don't want to say 50% of the way there, because I don't think there is a there exactly, because it's an ongoing thing. But I certainly have come a long, long way through the making of this album in just 3 months. Because again, it's this whole idea of a forcing function. It means that it's almost like you have to simplify, because you've got a challenging amount of time. Because, I haven't stopped my life. The closest I've got to it is in the last week in doing this. And I'm still working on the business. It's just I've got an extra 2 hours in the evening, and I'm doing more on music than I do usually. So, but I haven't destroyed my life. It's just been in amongst my life. I mean, in the first couple of months, sometimes I was just doing 10 minutes a day. So, in that time, I've made an enormous amount of progress to defining what my sound is, but not, and this is the really important part, but not by thinking it through, not by having this vision in my head of a specific outcome. This is the kind of music that I know I want to make, and anything else will be disappointing. I won't like anything else. That is not how you will find yourself in your music. That is not how you will find, when I say yourself, I don't mean literally yourself, I mean your own authentic sound. Because a unique style is as much an emergent property as it is something that you consciously create. There is a conscious element to it where it's almost like there's what you consciously think you want to do is a compass that points you in a direction, but along the way, other things start emerging through the making of an album. You'll find, hang on a minute, this isn't exactly what I thought it would be. It has elements of what I thought it would be. And it's not that I was completely wrong about what I wanted and what I liked and what it ended up being, but what it has become is in so many different ways much more than I thought possible. I mean, I'm not just saying this for myself. I'm also talking about some of the other people who have finished an album with me in the Make an Album with Mike program. It's become so much more than I thought it could be. But funnily enough, by, in a sense, me doing less than I thought I needed to. And this is kind of the magical thing about it. I mean, having said that, the other side to it is I'm not seeing this album as an endpoint by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it's almost like this is a waypoint. It's a milestone on the way to somewhere else. Because in listening back to this album now, it's not exactly that I would do anything differently exactly. I don't think I could have done anything differently. It's almost that I know what to do next. I've got this fire in my belly to use, sort of really develop certain things that I discovered that I didn't even know were there inside myself, and to move forward. Now, obviously, I have to finish this album first, and there is a sense in which it's a bit frustrating to have to finish this one first before doing these other things. But I know I have to, because if I don't, then I won't do these other things. So it's almost like I have to put a full stop. I have to an underline. I have to kind of shut this box before I open another one. But I mean, there are certain tracks on the album that I might not include if I knew what I know now, if I did before know what I know now. I don't think they're so far off that I would write a track as a replacement in the next couple of days. Right? It's not like that, but it's like, okay, now I've got this work, this kind of project. There's this track here that it's cool and I like it, and it kind of fits, but it's not really where I want to go. I guess I just had to get it off my chest. And so there's a track like that. There's another one another couple which I think, they're a little bit of a throwback to a past, a fairly recent past actually, a throwback to a past where I thought I was doing something completely different, and yet they work in the story of the album, and it's not like they're completely out of place. But I probably would want to do something slightly different. But these, and there's this light and shade quality to some other tracks on the album. I would say that there's one track that kind of stands on its own, that's a bit on its own, that's a bit out there. When I say out there, it's not out there, it's not weird, it's just compared to the others. But I would say that's not the direction I want to go in. And then there's another couple of tracks which are, again, on their own, which aren't the direction that I want to go in either. But then the rest of the album is made up of these two halves. Okay, there's a very kind of electronic with voice thing that I'm doing that's very me, very, very me. And then there's this much more lyrical, chilled, and sort of very kind of, how would I call it? I mean, it's almost childlike in its sort of innocence, and some people would say it's awfully cheesy, like awful in an awful way. Yeah. So, but it's like, and that's very me as well. And so these two, this is almost like the light and the shade, two sides of my character. It's almost like for the next album, that's where I'm going. But the only way I could have known that, I mean, in the shade side of it, that wasn't even something that was in my mind originally. There's a couple of tracks on the album which I'm really, really into, which I want to do more on. And they weren't even on my mind when I started making this album. But there's no way I could have known that this was where I wanted to go without making it. And this is what I mean about it's so easy and it's understandable, but it's us human beings tend to get process and result all mixed up. Because at the end of the day, the result is not, I mean, it's a cliche, people say it all the time, focus on the process, not the result. But the result serves the process. The result tells you what you want to do next. Yeah, it's like the result is the thing that's pointing to the process. You haven't got this idea, this idea in your head is not what you are going to achieve. And if you do achieve that, I can promise you it's not as good as it could have been had you focused more on the process. The result that you have in your head, yes, you can follow it. And it's not that you're going to make something that is just 5 million miles away from it and that you hate. If you are more flexible with this idea that you have in your head, what it is it's like a signpost pointing you in a direction. And then along the way, you go, oh, and there's this, and oh, no, that makes more sense. And oh, I can't do this as well as I thought I could, but I can do this much better than I thought I could. That is the process that you want to be engaged in over your artistic career. If you are to find the most authentic expression of yourself in your music. And while I would certainly not say, I certainly wouldn't say that this album that I'm about to complete is the most brilliant and wonderful, authentic expression of myself, it's the closest I've ever got.